Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Education Connection. We are here with the Minister of Education, the Honorable Diallo Rabane. We are here with Ms. Laurel Burns, who is the Learning First Project Team member. And tonight we have a special guest. We have Mr. Dean Fogo, who is the acting deputy principal at Clearwater School, but he is also the teacher of the year. So thank you, Mr. Fugo. Well done and congratulations to you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. And I'm going to turn it right over to Minister Rabine.
And thank you, Dr. Celeste. And again, welcome, Laurel. Welcome, Dean. It's a pleasure to have you on the show with us. The reigning teacher of the year. It's not every day you get to interact with someone of such a celebrity status like this.
I
but
can say the same, Minister.
I am excited to continue our series. This series that we've had over the last 3 weeks is one that's focused on the signature learning program that will be opening for S1 students in September 2022. Tonight, as excited as I'm joined by stakeholders that participated in the prototyping and testing of features of these new signature learning programs a few weeks ago. The prototyping is an exciting and critically important part of the process that we have spoken about in the last few Education Connection episodes. Over the last few episodes that we have had, the one that really stands out to me was the one previous to this, episode 6, and when we had some of our students on, and it was a phenomenal episode, allowing our students to actually give and talk about what it is that they learned, what it is that they would want to do, because at the end of the day, it is truly, truly about them. But tonight, you're going to hear from our guests, and they will share with you experiences, and then we'll open up the opportunity for you, the Bermudian community, to ask questions and hopefully secure your commitment to get involved with the process as we move forward. As a reminder, the main idea behind the signature programs is to give students the opportunity to spend a significant part of their time in school following their passions, building on their talents, and developing the skills, knowledge, and relationships needed to achieve career, further education, and life aspirations. The signature schools will still have a core curriculum that students will be expected to complete to give them the foundational knowledge and skills needed to compete locally and globally. They will also offer signature learning programs that will be selected by the young person according to their interests and ambitions. I want to reiterate the piece about the core curriculum because I get asked about that a lot, about the core subjects of math and English as example. I want to reassure the viewers that our students will have access to both their core curriculum and the signature learning programs. Our signature learning programs will offer a range of modules that are relevant in relevant academic subjects, appropriate practical skills training. So a lot of people ask about that, and sometimes uh, people our age and older would know would refer to it as work release or things along those lines. We intend to incorporate those sorts of things. We want our students to be well rounded when they do leave our system. Individual and group projects on real world issues and challenges. How do you build critical thinking skills by throwing real world challenges at children and allowing them at students and allowing them to solve them? Internships and meaningful work placements. How do you get that experience that people often say, okay, this job advert says you need this much experience. How do I get my foot in the door? These are the types of things that we want to have in place. Effective guidance on career and further education with relevant accreditation. Lastly, but as we previously shared, the signature learning programs at Cedar Bridge Academy will be STEM, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, and Trades and Professions. The signature programs at the Barclay Institute will be Health and Social Care, Financial, and Insurance Services. Now, with that brief introduction, I want to pass the mic over to Ms. Laurel Burns to remind our viewers on what's going into the signature redesign process and to give our special guests an opportunity to speak. And that I'll pass. Oh, and welcome, Ms. Jackson. Thank you for being able to join us tonight. It really is nice to get to see you as well. So I'll pass it over to Laurel so she can introduce our guests further and describe the things that have been happening, the wonderful things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks.
Good evening, Minister. Thank you once again for having us with you. And I think it's such a wonderful opportunity as we close out this first term of schooling to close out with the perspective from some of our stakeholders who had attended the prototyping. So as we've previously stated, the school transformation teams have been working really, really hard over this last term, in fact, to develop the new features of our signature learning programs. And so it is this work that has been the basis of the prototyping we did, the process by which we learn as much as we can about how to operationalize the work. Like all good change programs, we have to move beyond plans that are on a page. And we're really appreciative of the public support that we received. We had nearly 200 adults register across the 12 sessions, and we do have two of them with us today. We also had over 60 young people and their teachers attend with us, and we did hear from those young people a couple of weeks ago, and they were absolutely phenomenal, and it was an awesome experience. I know Brother Fogo will talk a bit about that later as he did attend with his students. And so all of this is on the back of 840 odd Bermudians who've been actively involved in signature engagement process that helped us to determine the signatures that we're moving forward with. There have been over 65 Bermudians involved in the transformation teams, and there have been well over 1,000 people who we reach through our newsletter every single month. And so, as the minister mentioned, we are now, like in all quality transformation and change processes, in the middle of a stage gate approval process. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but essentially these are critical points in the process of the work of each of the teams engaged in learning first. They're put through this rigorous review process by members of the department's executive leadership team. So we do all of this work, but we have to have some benchmarks to have a look at what we're doing and if we're on the right track. They keep an eye out on our, we want you to keep an eye out on our next e-newsletter for the outcomes of this process. So again, who do we have with us today? We have two stakeholders who did participate in prototyping. We introduced Mr. Fogo. He, as the acting deputy at Clearwater Middle School and the recently awarded 2021 Ben Teacher of the Year. But I also want to add that he also brought his expertise as a business studies teacher when he came for our financial and insurance services prototyping day. So with that expertise and with that lens, he was able to offer some really brilliant feedback to us. Ms. Kim Jackson is a program manager at Mirrors, which supports young people and their families to ensure they are empowered to reach their full potential. So again, having a community stakeholder like Ms. Jackson join us to give critical feedback with the lens of all young people with whom we are trying to educate was really, really important. And Ms. Jackson came during our health and social care prototyping day. So we are really, really excited to have them on board and to hear what they have to say. Thank you, Minister.
And thank you, Laurel, for thank you for that introduction. So just before we get into anything, I just wonder if we could just get just a brief, just some brief comments from our guests, Ms. Jackson and Mr. Fogo, on how what was it like being in these prototypes, and what do you think that, and what would you say to encourage the public to get more involved if they wish to?
Well, I guess I'll go first. I would like to say I was excited, and I want to add that I'm the proud parent of two graduates of the public school system, and they went all the way through. And so I got a chance to really experience public school through my children's lens, but also through the Mirrors program. And I'm going to tell you, for the first time, I was excited about the school reform with seeing the new signature learning programs. You know, I've heard about it. I attended a lot of the sessions. I've listened. But being in that in the room with other key stakeholders and really getting to see it unfold brought a level of excitement to me. And the reason why I am excited is because I saw how it will be student driven, personalized learning, flexible. And so when you have those things that connects academics to young people's passion, you're already going to get success in education. You will already get success because it's going to be driven by where they want to go and their passion, tapping into their talents. But it was also great to have the key stakeholders around to provide feedback or to provide suggestions of what we want to see. Like we're talking about a holistic student, right? So one of the parents there talked about making sure that we had the health and wellness component all the way through. And that was quite interesting because she talked about her students or students that she had worked with and how that played a big part in their learning. And then we talked about all the wraparound social emotional, the mentorship, bringing industry in, allowing students to connect to industry to get those real life experiences, which excites them. And so I was excited about that.
I can follow on from Ms. Jackson. I too was excited. I'm just a naturally excited person. And just to be able to be in the midst of the students, to see the program, as Ms. Jackson said, rolled out and what it will look like. I was excited that we are finally moving from the box that we normally put ourselves in. I've always said Fata Farant really boxes us in as a country. And to see the rollout of the program, it's everyone, more minds, more ideas make for a better system. And I love that I was able to put my voice into the mix and put my ideas in. And I didn't feel like they were just asking just to ask, but I felt like they were asking because they valued your opinion. So I would encourage anyone who has an experience that they want to see young people coming along experience, then come on out, because I love the flexibleness of how I see it. I see it's going to be flexible. I'm not a box person, as I mentioned, and I like the fact that it's going to be flexible, not just in what is being taught, it's how it's being taught, how we hire people, how we look at education. It's going to be different because we are a comfortable people, and then when we are put into places where we have to think differently, just now I kicked the plug on my computer, so the lights in the computer and everything went off. I didn't panic because it's like, our students are like that. When they are in a situation, they can shift and then they can problem solve quickly. And that's how I see the new education system, the transformation, going into a system where our students are learning how to problem solve. I always say, Google has all the information. If I want to learn about, like in business, entrepreneurship, the qualities of an entrepreneur, I can go on Google and ask for that question and get that information. But I have to be able to do something with that. And this new system will allow our students to be able to manage, manipulate, alternate, analyze, and then problem solve and move into a different arena that they are now. But you need to be able to solve problems and set yourself apart from the rest. So I'm excited and looking forward to moving forward in this new system.
Dean, just listening to you speak about, especially about problem solving and having critical thinking, reminds me of, back in my, I studied electronic engineering in university, and I have a degree, a Bachelor of Science degree in electronic engineering. But, one of the first things that surprised me coming out of Bermuda was, you're provided with a calculator that has all the equations in it. So all that memorizing the equations is done. The exam's an open book, and so you're like, wait a minute, I have all the stuff here, and it is so much more difficult, to have all that information right there, but not knowing how to apply it and not knowing when to pick this equation versus that equation, and that's where I kind of stumbled initially when I was in university because it wasn't something that I really bought from high school here in Bermuda. Not kicking, how we were learning back then, but you mentioning that reminded me of that process when I was out, when I started university back in when I did the late 80s for me. I know.
Dates aren't irrelevant in the new system.
and so what really warmed my heart was last time we had the show. We had the young man from Berkeley, and we had two young ladies, one from Cedar Bridge, one from Delwood Middle School, and one from Sand Secondary Middle School. And to hear them talk excitedly about what they did and what happened, and the opportunity they had for people to be able to say, this is what I don't like, or this is what I do like. Why can't teachers do this, and why can't meet me here, meet me there? And so it was refreshing to hear young people understand that we're trying to do something for them, and we're here to genuinely listen. And that's what I took away from what you just said. That it was a prototyping session, and the sessions were built around people just listening.
Mm-hmm. And that's the exciting part, because which Mr. Fogo said, we all feel that we have contributed to it, that it's not just a rubber stamp process. And so the excitement is there. I also like the innovation of some face-to-face. There'll be online, there'll be touch in industry. So all of those things are great, because that also will develop the critical thinking and problem solving skills, the curiosity and imagination, them actually the initiative, all those new things that are necessary for successful students.
Mm-hmm.
They're built into this new system, and that's what's exciting, because you could layer any degree on those things, right? When somebody has critical thinking skills, problem solving, adaptability, initiative, whatever degree they go after, or whatever career they go after, they will have those skills to be successful.
Yep.
And that's what the new system is going to bring forth.
And that's what we want for, when we first said about this, and it was about bringing equity to the system. We know as a public system is a comprehensive system, and anyone who has the ability to learn is enrolled. Mm-hmm. But there are different approaches there are different types of approaches different types of students need, and they have different needs within the classroom. They learn differently, and so it's incredibly difficult task to have such a varied, in some cases you could have a team, a class of overachievers. You could have a class of people that need a little bit extra bit of work, and some people who don't need it at all. But and that's where I glory in the spirit of our teachers that are in the public school system, because they face a challenge every day when they go into those classrooms, and and some of them have more challenges than others. But this is why public education is so critical to be successful in a country, because it is the only system that is what we call comprehensive. And so, comprehensive system will do what it needs to do to reach every one of our citizens, not just a select few, or not just a few that kind of fit into a certain mold. And so that is why it's so important to me to do what needs to be done, and continue to be here and help and produce the types of policies that get us to where we need to get to. And I'm just so thankful that we do have so many dedicated teachers that get up every day and do the things that need to be done to ensure that our country will progress and continue to progress with our young people. I do have a few questions I do want to run by you guys. I have one question here is what are you excited about as you think about signature learning programs from the next year onward? Are there any particular features in there that just really excited you, and you're like, I just can't wait to see this get developed even more?
Career readiness. For me, it's career readiness, connecting, having students to think about their passions and their interests, and connecting academics to career. Mm-hmm. That's exciting for me.
Mm-hmm. Because this is what you will get at the end. Mm-hmm. But I feel with the new system, you get little bits of it as you go along. You
Mhm.
see how what you are learning is connected to your passion, your interest, the relevance of it to Bermuda, the Bermuda economy. You see that as you go along because, I'm more interested if I'm going to something, I know how I will be benefited.
Right.
With the new system, what I'm looking forward to is a new way of even teaching. It could even be facilitating.
Uh-huh.
We normally sit there, chalk and talk at the front of the class. We do our little, I guess, sample differentiation. Um, but I think the main focus would be on differentiation, facilitating, and I'm looking forward specifically to how we can infuse project-based learning into the curriculum. It's
Mhm.
something that is new. It's going to cause some people to shudder because they are so used to talk and
Right.
talk. They are not used to it, so they don't have the confidence in it. We've done that at Clearwater Middle School since COVID. We decided to do project-based learning and got hit from some people on that. But what we saw students taking ownership of their learning. Answers are different. I always tell people there are different ways to get to Hamilton. It's not just one way. The cookie cutter way is no longer. So with
Mhm.
project-based learning, the teacher can sit back and watch as the students analyze the problems. They look at it, they test it, they try it. They get success from it. And we've had great success with that for some because some see the value of it, and some are having challenges
Mhm.
with. I'm looking specifically for project-based learning, and also looking for the day that I went to the rollout. They talked about assessment and student-led conferences. So I'm looking to see how that's going to be rolled out, where students are going to be leading conferences to talk about what they are learning, their goals, and how they are shaping their learning within these signatures. And of course, I'm looking forward specifically to see where I'm going to be, hopefully, with financial and insurance services,
Mhm.
and to see how I would like it to be, where there's a direct connection from high school into the industry in Bermuda that we see so many are prospering in. And so I believe that our young people will go into the signature schools knowing where they're going to end up because they see it every day.
And
Yeah,
thank you
and
for that.
and I want to add to that because that was exciting as well. The mentorship. So
Mhm.
it's not waiting until the end that they get into, the Bermuda economy. Along the way, there will be the touch points with industry, right?
Mhm.
And mentorship. So they will have that feel along the way. And that's exciting because that's got to open up. I think it's one of those challenges that we're going to get to that question because industry has to open up in a different way,
Uh-huh.
right? To
Yep.
allow that connection. But school is going to have to open up as well to allow learning to occur through
Mhm.
those connections.
And
And
that
what
learning, which I'm excited about, sorry, Minister, the learning is not only in the four walls of the classroom. That right there excites me, and I want to see how we can bring learning into. There are many people who learn outside of the classroom. Why can't we take those credits and edit? There are people who learn better online. I always
yes.
said I have to be in the classroom, but since COVID, I've been in a course, and I love the online presence. Even with teaching, it was like you are coming to my show every day.
Right.
And I think that's probably why I got nominated for Teacher of the Year. I performed
Mhm.
online.
Well,
And
I
you
thank
know,
you very much, Mr. Fuller, for sure. Thank you very much. I
and
was gonna say like when my daughter is she's in M2 at Whitney, and she loves math, and we have these little math competitions, but it's not the same old boring stuff. I've learned now that she does this game her and her friends like to play called Roblox. I don't know
uh-huh.
anything about it, but presenting math problems within the context of this game, and she's like,
Yes,
"Oh, I get it. I'm able to, solve it." Whereas if I come and just say, "Okay, what's X plus this?" she was like, "Oh, that's just so boring," and they kind of tune out. But so I get it. Giving them an opportunity to connect what they're learning to something that truly interests them, And
Yes.
it's a different way of learning, but I absolutely enjoy it when we have
You
our
can apply a lot.
little math games. We have our
Yeah.
little math
You can
conversations
something
together.
new.
Just one last question. I see we do have some coming from the audience. We do have one
Okay.
coming from the audience here, but here we have flexibility and inclusion are key concepts mentioned in these stakeholder conversations, as well as encouraging critical thinking in learners. Will specific and ongoing training be offered to teachers to help them enable as such means of learning in their classroom? I think that's a question more suited for you, Laurel.
And that's the
Yes.
question I have also.
Yes, Minister. The plan is to provide whatever is needed for our educators. And as an example, as Mr. Fogo had already talked about, project-based learning. While we haven't started full training with the entire school system, there was some training that did take place during the summer, and we've started to introduce the idea of authentically Bermudian project-based learning, and we did that earlier this term, and just starting to have a conversation about it, not jumping right in and saying this is what you need to start doing, because right now we're managing teaching and learning in a very volatile situation. But what we wanted to do was start the conversation with our educators around the idea of project-based learning and what that means in doing it in a way that's authentically Bermudian. So the goal is to provide training as needed for all of our educators as we move through this process.
Thank you, Laurel. And we have made a commitment to ensuring that professional development is there. That's something that you've heard come from the Ministry of Education on numerous occasions. Because it's critical for us. What we're doing is, and Dean, you actually touched on it. It's a shift in a mindset in some ways for some people. But you can't just say we're going to shift and kind of put them out there to figure it out themselves. You have to undergird them. You have to give them that support, and you have to kind of show them this is how it can work for you. But at the same time, working with them to work with their strengths and also to help round out their weaknesses. And so that's really part of this whole reform that we've undertaken, and the amount of collaboration and transparency that we have had. It's all about working with what we have. It's not about trying to force the square peg, the round peg in the square hole. I am a firm believer, and I've always been a firm believer that anybody has the ability to learn something if you give them the right tools. And so sometimes, and I know it's happened in the past, and we can't change the past where the right idea was there, but the wrong tools were given, and so the right idea became a bad idea because the tools just didn't sync up with what it is that we were trying to accomplish. And so we're trying to look at this from a completely different standpoint, and a standpoint of working with the people we have and trying to undergird them and build on their strength, on their strengths, and also give them resources that can upgrade some of the weaknesses they may have as they move forward. But it can only happen if there's a two-way conversation as well. We all have to be vulnerable enough to get in the room and talk, listen, and understand that we're all here to try and get to the point that we're trying to get to, and that is a education system that all of our children can benefit from. And so with that, I just want to jump. This next question here is, and this is for Mr. Fogo and Ms. Jackson. It says, and again, both of you, is there an aspect of the changes we've been making to learning and schooling that you want us to think about, or have some more thought and think about some more?
The only one for me, and I spoke about it when we were in our session, is considering. I think there's still going to be a small, very small percentage of students that are going to be undecided. And so, they're going to, and they might be undecided for quite a ways into their high school experience. So I want us to think more about, what does that look like for a cohort of undecided? I know that requires more career planning. So they're going to be testing and assessment and trying things along the way. But if we look at in college, there's a track for undecided, right? that gives you that broad-based core foundation that at the point you decide, you can go any way you want to go. I just want to consider, do we create that also for that one student that just isn't decided?
And that is a good observation, and it's something people ask, on occasion. It's what if I go to one school and then I was like, yeah, I don't really like that signature. What if, can I go to another one? The I do know the future development is to have some way, shape, or form that you'll be able to, you say you're in one school doing your major signature, but you may be interested in another one as a minor, and we have to look at some way of how that can actually work. And so it's not something that we're focused on now because we only have two senior schools. When we talk about having 3, 4, 5 senior schools, it's more of an opportunity for that to happen, and so that has to be something that is worked out. Again, I stress to the Bermudian public that we're doing this in a deliberate fashion to get to where we want to go. We recognize that there are some problems or some issues that are there now that may not have the solutions yet, but we do know that as we move forward, those solutions will present themselves to us, and we will be able to implement them for sure.
Mm-hmm. I can agree with Ms. Jackson, being one who may have been undecided or took a path because I thought it was the easier way to go to get to my goal. There were times when I had to change. So that will be key also in allowing those who are undecided to have a security in where they could go. But for me personally, looking at this change, we've seen change before, and we've seen new things come, we've seen things go. And my thing, as I've mentioned in previous audiences, I believe, Minister, you was in one of them. I would like to see a project manager in each school for Learning First to ensure that all the principles of Learning First are being followed, and that person will be responsible for transformation within that school setting, and may even talk to the different people in the different schools. There's concern of where some educators are going to be placed. Some could be the Learning First managers within schools. Another thing is, I talked about it earlier a little bit, but I'm not sure if it's in this question or not. But there are opportunities. Students are learning outside of the school walls. They are taking part in social clubs. They are taking part in churches. So some of that learning that they are experiencing there, if there is a credit for, maybe like in college, I had credits for life experience. If there is an opportunity for students to have credit for what they are doing outside, team building activities, they are creative, they are innovative, and they've learned all that through being on a football team, even working well on a team. If they can come in with maybe some life skill credit, then that could also bring them as a well-rounded citizen. They say, okay, I need to start joining clubs. I need to be part of the football team. I need to do well there. I need to be respectful and responsible. So I can bring in credit. So that way it could not just be in the four walls. And the last one I thought of was where we have the professionals coming into the classrooms. If there could be a professional provisional license, it could even be for a month, where the professional could be a chartered accountant to come in and teach accounting. And that way they get connected to the knowledge and also to the person. So if there were opportunities for provisional licenses for educators, non-traditional educators, to flexible, I guess I could say, or Learning First educators to come into the classroom, that would excite me also. And that's why I feel I first got introduced being on the design principles, and one was flexible. And I've just grabbed that and not let it go. And that's how I look at the Learn First, the transformation in the system. Everything's an option. Don't think it won't work. It could be an option, and it could be the answer. And that's why I got involved, because I could have answers to some of the solutions, some of the problems that they are looking for. And so can you, if you want to be a part of Learning First team.
You know, before you go there, Jackson, I just want to say that part about the provisional licenses is really something that I'm keen on as well, and it's something that I have spoken to the BEC about, and they are keen to start meeting with Learning First to see how they're in the process of going through a bit of change themselves, and they've got a strategic plan that they put in place to do things a little bit differently than what they've been doing all of this time. And so, I look forward to the meetings that they plan to set up with Learning First to see what role they play, because that was one of the key things we did. And this was before we even started, the journey we're on now was looking at how do we look at licensure? How do we look at the skill sets that teachers need in today's world? There's not knocking the person who went to school to learn and is an excellent math teacher, but that guy that's been working on that engineer that's been working in the field for the last 10 years can come in and actually give a different perspective. And they should be allowed to come in and give a different perspective, and not held back because they're not a pure teacher in that essence. And so those are the types of things, those are the balances we're going to have to strike, and the types of things that we're going to that definitely are in the works for us as we move forward with this. I'm sorry, Kim.
No, I wanted to just add that to make sure, and I heard it when we were in our sessions that we're going to be doing some of the exploration early on. So of course the years that's going down to the primary level, and so I want to make sure that the industry touch points occur down there as well, because that's where the excitement comes. And I remember with my son, he went away for a year of his middle school, and that's what they did. They brought industry in, and he loved computers, right? And so we thought his career path was going to be in computers, but it was through that exploration that he discovered that's a hobby for me, not a career path. And because the industry of human services psychology came in, and he was like, wow, that's where I want to go. Now that came out of left field for me. So what it did is it validated the importance of having the younger students have those explorations and touch points with industry so that they could get excited about something and choose that path. Now, I thought my son was going to change because there was no way he was going into this field, but he stuck to it. And he's, he's accelerated on his pathway to become a psychologist. Which is amazing how that transformed him.
Well, good for him. And as we know, as we plan to move from a 3-tier system to a 2-tier system, and have P1 through P8 at the primary level, and S1 through S5 at the senior level. The idea is those P7 and P8 years are extremely critical to provide our children with that type of exposure that you're talking about, to help them, guide them, and get them kind of interested in what it is. And so as you all continues to hear me saying, it's a methodical way that we're moving along, and we're kind of, moving in that direction. For some people, it's not fast enough. For others, we're going too fast, and so we're always trying to strike that fine balance. One last question here before I'll pull you in, Laurel, that I see has popped up here. What perceived or actual barriers might you anticipate in the Signature Learning Program, and how might we as a community resolve them?
You want me to go, Ms. Jackson, or you?
You can start on this one.
I started this one. Us. We can be our own. We can get in our own way. This is how we've done it all the time. I remember when I was young, they didn't want Carnival Cruise Lines coming to Bermuda. And I'm like, it's money, people. So sometimes we get in our own way of being passive. We need to be assertive. We need to be go-getters. We need to be forward thinkers. Sometimes one of the listeners asked about training of teachers. Classroom management is going to be totally different within a Learning First classroom, because it's not going to be do as I say. We're going to have to be able to manage what is going on in the classroom. Leadership in schools. We don't want it to be where school leaders are not able to make those decisions that will change their environment, because the decision from the top is trying to get that cookie cutter approach, but what works in a smaller environment may not work in a larger environment. So I'm hoping that micro and management will be separated. Some of the rules in teaching, as I mentioned, there's going to have to be a discussion with the Bermuda Union teachers with the collective bargaining agreement. Is going to look different. So we are going to have to look at all areas or components of teaching, because it's going to be different. And also compensation. Not that I do it for the money, but sometimes when, like my present, I know this is personal, acting as deputy, I should still get compensated the same as the deputy gets compensated. So I think it's everything has to be looked at. There are some people who are not going to say everything that we look at, but when you ask me, Minister, I will let you know every single thing.
Well,
because
I will keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's key for all components to work. And then because there are some times previously where we've made changes, but we haven't looked at those things where we didn't think made a difference. And that's what I love about how you are rolling out Learning First. You are asking everyone to be involved. And at the end, you cannot say you did not have a chance, because the answer may lie within your mind, within your thoughts, and with your ideas. Yeah. So I'm loving it. Yes, those were my thoughts. I'll let you with Jack.
Thank you.
You know, you said it all, but I agree with the one of us. You know, we have to be open to this new way of learning. And it is right for the new era of young people. And so we have to get on board with them. And so no longer can we do it our way. We have to do it this way that's going to really produce what is required for, 21st century. But also it's also about the community has to be willing to partner and mentor.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be the big key. We're going to have to work together with this for it to work. Because education system is not going to be able to, the teachers are not going to be able to do it alone. The school's not going to be able to do it alone. Community has got to get on board and to participate and to provide the level of mentorship that's going to be required for every student to be successful. And that's the biggest thing for me, because I want to see more of Bermudians, more, individuals, grassroots individuals being connected, entrepreneurship, all of those to take students. If we had every successful adult mentor a young person in schools, we would transform it just by doing that. So that's going to have to be a critical point for the community.
Thank you for those contributions. Laura, I see you've popped on. I know we're headed towards the top of the hour.
I'm not in my head. I think our two esteemed colleagues have really said it all. Kim, you spoke to what was going through my mind about really impressing upon our community and our educators and our stakeholders that generational differences are real. They're very real. I know we speak flippantly about those millennials or those Gen Xers, but when you really take time to study what those differences are, and people joke about them being wired differently. No, but yes. And what does that really mean? And when you drill down to that, it cannot be drilled down. It cannot be business as usual. We cannot do education that was designed for an industrial age, because that's not where we are anymore when we look at all of those histories. And so I think that they've encapsulated that for us. We probably are our own worst enemy. And this process is, I think, mind-blowing for so many people, because when our colleagues throw questions to me and say, is this going to happen? And is that going to happen? I'm at a stage now where I say, what do you think my answer is going to be? And they're going to say, we get to decide. Absolutely. We get to decide. We get to recommend. The co-design process, Minister, is literally nothing we have done before. This co-design process, we are creating it for ourselves, and there can be nothing that's more powerful than this.
Thank you for that, Laurel, and I thank you, guests. We have reached the 7 o'clock hour, and so I just wanted to give everybody an opportunity just to wrap up as we move on. I do want the Bermudian public to know that they can get involved. Contact us via our social media. Go to www.learningfirstbda.com. Sign up. Send us an email at schoolredesign@moed.bm. And again, the social medias, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram. I know that we're and based on the conversations I had at the prototyping, it looks like we're moving into Snapchat and TikTok as well. There's this other one that the young people use that we're trying to get involved in as well. We have to figure out how to reach them where they are. All right. So just a quick wrap up, Dana, from you, and take us away.
Yes, I want to thank everyone for being a part of this evening. We want to send a special thank you to our stakeholders, Mr. Dean Fogo and Ms. Kimberly Jackson. Thank you very much for your participation. We want to send a special thank you to Ms. Laurel Burns, who's doing a great job with the Learning First program team. Well done, and keep doing what you're doing. And Minister, thank you for being here tonight and sharing with the Bermuda public. And we look forward to the next episode. And we will see everyone later. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
First.